It's a great day to be alive. Every day we rise is a great day to be alive. And Seven Cities Farms of Hampton Roads presents Portsmouth Coffee Talk. And welcome to our listeners on WGPL 1350 AM, soon to be an FM station, 88.7. WPCE right now is already on AM, so we'll be able to reach more people. We're excited about that. And we are here today. Well, first, let me introduce our host. We have Leah Drake Stitt, and we have Thomas the Colonel Chapman, who is on the phone from Hawaii. He's coming back tomorrow, but he's been in Hawaii with family enjoying a well-deserved vacation. Good morning, co-host.
Good morning, James.
Good morning, Slim.
Good morning, Colonel.
And Leah.
This morning, we're going to have the Virginia state legislators, and we're waiting. We have Delegate Attorney Don Scott with us, and we're waiting on Senator Lucas and Delegate Nadarius
Clark.
And we're waiting on them. But we'll start with Don, since we have him here. Good morning, Don, and thank you for joining us, getting up early. I know you're an early riser. I see that Navy hat behind you, so military, that tells me right away this is nothing for you. You know.
I started with a lot of bad habits. One of them is getting up very early still, and I enjoy being up. But I want to thank you and Leah and Slim for having me, and Colonel for having me on this morning. This is going to be a fun conversation. There's a lot going on. But I get up early, man. I can't help it. I feel like I'm gonna miss something. I'd rather go to bed early and get up early. You know, when you grow up in the country, I grew up in Houston, but I used to go to Jasper, Texas every summer from the day school was out to the weekend before school came back. I was in the country, and them folks said when the sun go down, you go down. When the sun come up, you come up. So that's how the old folk work. You know what I mean? You sit still at night and all that kind of thing. So I still got some of those old habits kicking back in.
That's good. That's good. Exactly. I got to learn those habits, Don. I'm usually going to bed about 2 and having to get up early, you know?
Oh,
so
no.
It's not good. It's
not
good.
No. That's bad for my skin. I got to get some sleep.
Well, your skin looks good this morning, okay?
I'm just joking. Thank you.
Definitely.
Okay. This is Senator Lucas coming in at this time.
Who is that?
Senator Lucas.
Okay. Good morning, Senator Lucas.
She's connecting. She's not connected yet.
All right, we'll give her time to come in.
Well, as she comes in, let's give the disclaimer, because the views listed on this show or stated on this show are those of the host and the guest and not of the radio station.
Thank you, Colonel. That'll keep us out of Facebook jail. And,
yes.
All other kinds of that Attorney Scott can help us get out of.
I may not be able to help you get out of that one.
Not out of Facebook.
I just got off of. Hold on a second.
I might end up helping you get in some trouble. That's what I'm trying to help y'all stay out of trouble.
Well, we better be careful then this morning. But anyway, Louise, are you there? Senator Lucas?
I am, but for some reason I'm still, hold on a second, I'm still not.
Still not quite, let's see. Well, anyway, while you're doing that, I'm gonna start with Don. And Don, what a whirlwind session this year. I mean, did you break a record for being the longest session
wow.
ever in the history of Virginia Assembly?
So one of the things that I'm gonna tell you about, this is only my second term, so I don't know about if it was a record broken or not. I doubt it, because what happens is we went from regular session into special session because we still haven't finished. We got a lot of stuff done, but we also have a lot of things that are unfinished. So there were several bills, about 40 of them, that are still being acted on, what they call, so the patron of a bill, the person that introduced the bill, on either the House or the Senate side, those bills may have had some modifications in negotiation. And what they do is the Senate leadership appoints what they call conferees on the bill. So the patron and a couple other members are conferees. And then on the House side, if there's a patron of a House bill, there's a patron and conferees. And if that patron is not from either House, and this may sound confusing, there are conferees from both the House and the Senate. And that bill is what they call in conference, which means they're negotiating how to get that bill out of conference. And if they can't come to an agreement, then that bill will die. If they come to an agreement, then the conferees from both the House and the Senate sign off on it, a majority of the conferees, and then those bills then would come to the floor of the House and the Senate respectively to be voted on again and then sent to the governor's desk. At this point, there are about 40 bills that are still outstanding, and I'm not even getting to the budget yet. The senator, when she gets on, she is the expert there. She is a budget conferee, which is a big deal. And so the budget is still being negotiated, but though there are about 40 bills that are still out being negotiated, and those bills were carried over from the session that ended, regular session, into special session. And then the budget is in special session. So we have a ways to go before we're done. We're still negotiating those bills. I believe the majority of those bills are probably either negotiated or they're dead, one way or the other, because we've had a lot of time to negotiate. And by the time we get back into session, come back and call back, which the speaker and the majority leader from the Senate negotiate, and they'll call us back to deal with those bills.
Okay, I can hear Don now.
But the biggest issue is that we have to deal with the budget. And the Senator Lucas is President Pro Tem, and she's also a budget conferee for the Senate. So she's involved and knows a lot more about what's going on in regard to the budget than I do. And in the House, I'm a Democrat, full disclosure, and we're in the minority now after having been in the majority for 2 years. We run every 2 years, and the Senate is still, the Democrats are still in the majority. So the majority in the Senate, which is Democrats, are negotiating with the majority in the House, which are Republicans, on the budget. And the two budget leadership and the budget conferees are all negotiating. Some from the Senate side, which is probably a majority Democratic negotiating team, and from the House, which is a majority Republican negotiating team, even though there are conferees from both parties on the budget committees, budget conferees. So that's kind of where we are. We have a ways to go. There are a lot of different issues, and we can talk about those, but I want to let the senator chime in on her take on that before I go down that rabbit hole, because it is a rabbit hole, because there are so many things that are in the budget that folks have misconceptions about, depending on which side of the aisle you're on. And I think there's some things we can talk about to clear things up. But I want to hear the senator's take.
Well, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I'm having some technical difficulties this morning, but at least I think you can see my picture. Can you see that now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, all right. Well, at least I can hear you all now, because before I couldn't hear you as well. But Don has already set the table for where we are at this point. And just like he's indicated, it is a kind of a touchy situation that we're involved in right now, because we do have to go back to negotiate those items where we have differences on the budget. And the conferees have been meeting off and on since the session ended. But last week when we met, and that's on the Senate side, we did have enough people to cast a vote, but the chair wasn't there. And it's because her husband had to have surgery. Senator Janet Howell, who is chair of finance at this time. And so we're pretty much where we have been all along. Now, I understand that there have been some changes made since the last meeting, but as you know, we do have a majority by 1 on the Senate side. So my hope is that we're going to be able to hold the line on the issues that are important to us as Democrats. And as Don has already indicated, we've had an assault on our collective accomplishments like we've never seen before. And as you know, we've worked for decades to get some of these bills passed. And now there's an attack on all of the progress that we've made while Democrats were in the majority. But I can tell you that Democrats, we're trying to hold the line. As you all know, we've created what we call the Senate Brick Wall Caucus. And what we've done is we've come up with ways that we could try to beat back the attack that we're getting from the governor and from the Republicans, because they're trying to repeal things as simple as our voting rights. And at every turn, Democrats and that brick wall have said that we will not let you turn back the progress we've made on voting rights. But every Republican have been voting on restrictions to voting rights. And I would say that we had a massive victory in that we were able to maintain fair and secure elections here in the Commonwealth. And that's because that's what happens when Democrats are in the majority.
Yes.
And I mean things like from repealing same-day voting to getting access to just access to the ballot. Virginia Democrats, we thwarted every attempt that Republicans made. And
Senator,
yes.
Senator Lucas and Delegate Scott, from what you just said, Senator Lucas, how important is it, those committee assignments that you have, how important is that helping you hold the line, per se? Because, well, I know, Senator, you're on quite a few because of the time you've been in this, and Don, just 2 years, you're on some important committees as well. How important that is, being on those committees, especially those important committees, judicial and the ones that you all involved with, helping you hold the line. And in addition, how is that helping us here in Portsmouth as far as legislation that is coming down the pike that might affect Portsmouth and its citizens?
Well, make no mistake about it. A lot of people talk about the length of time that people have been in office, and they started calling like career politicians and the like. But you cannot get to a position where you can be impactful unless you have seniority. The General Assembly is a seniority-based institution, and you have to be there long enough to get in a position to get on those committees. Like, it took me quite a while before I got on Senate Finance and on Commerce and Labor. But now on those committees, I'm like the ranking member. You've got to be there until other people retire or whatever way of attrition they get out of there before you can get in a position where you can wield that kind of power. Now, I'm now one of the ranking members on Finance. I'm one of the ranking members on Commerce and Labor, and I am the chair of Education and Health. And on Rules, I'm ranking behind, because Senator Locke is a chair of Rules. And so I'm a ranking member on every committee that I serve on, to include Judiciary. And I'm was one of the first women to go on, at the time it was called Courts of Justice, when they had, Janet Howell and I were the first two women to go on who were non-lawyers. And I've been on that committee like over 20 years. So you have to be on those committees long enough to become a ranking member, where you come to be either the vice chair or the chair of the committee, where you can make some decisions. Let me give you an example. As chair of Education and Health, I control the docket. So all bills coming into that committee, whether they're from the Senate side or from the House side, I have the option to either place the bill in the subcommittee or hear the bill in the full committee before it goes to the floor. That's committee of the whole. And so by controlling those dockets like that, I may send a bill to a subcommittee, and the subcommittee members may decide that they do not want that bill reported. So then when it comes to my committee, essentially what happens is the bill will be recommended not to go any further, and usually that's by a PBI, passed by indefinitely. But you have to have control of the docket. You have to have some authority on those committees to be able to either advance a bill or to defeat a bill. And I mean, and there's just no other way of getting around it. If you're not a ranking member on there, you only just have one vote and whatever influence you have on other members on that committee. But normally what happens is the majority of the members usually defer to the chair.
Yeah, and I just want to add, I mean, Senator is not only a ranking member on a lot of committees, she's president pro tem of the Senate, which means when the lieutenant governor can't serve because the lieutenant governor is the president, and if the lieutenant governor has to step down, which she has, Lieutenant Governor Sears has stepped down several times, and President pro tem, our senator representing this area, Hampton Roads, Senator Lucas, is able to step in, and she presides over the Senate. And that's powerful. And one of the things we need to understand is that this region benefits from having Senator Lucas as the leader and ranking member for so many powerful committees. She is, I want to say she's the only senator who is from Hampton Roads, who's a budget conferee. Is that correct, Senator?
Senator Locke is also a budget conferee from Hampton Roads.
So we got Senator Locke on the peninsula side, and we got Senator Lucas on the south side here. That are both budget conferees. Those are two very powerful positions.
And with the two of us being conferees here in the 757, it makes a tremendous difference when it comes to budget items like funding for HBCUs. And we have been the front line for trying to make sure that we get the budget appropriations for HBCUs up to where they need to be, and still they're not where they need to be. But we have made tremendous gains as Congress. I told Don once he's no longer Delegate Scott, he'll be Congressman Scott, because it's so easy to call him Congressman.
Don't get me in trouble. Do not get me in trouble this morning.
But normally, but what happens though is that for those of us who are in the 757, and Don as a freshman legislator was able to get on many committees that a lot of freshmen do not get on. And that makes a tremendous difference. So in the event that the leadership changes in the House of Delegates, it's conceivable that the 757 in particular, Portsmouth, will hold the reins on much of the power in the legislature. Don, you want to go there?
I do not want to go there this morning, but I do want to let folks know, I am on Commerce and Energy, which is the business community. One of the things about having two people from this region, from Hampton Roads, we recognize how important it is for our port, for our shipyards, for the jobs that are created here. And, the Senator and I are both big supporters of renewable energy and the new wind energy that's coming in here, and it'll be based right here in Portsmouth.
Correct.
It'll be based between Portsmouth, Virginia Beach, Hampton Roads. Every piece of Hampton Roads is going to get a piece of the pie on this deal that we will create the largest production of renewable energy from wind in the country. And Portsmouth, little old Portsmouth, is where it all begins. And so exactly. we have two people that you are talking to now that are committed to that. We understand that it's good for business, and we understand that it's good for jobs and job creation. And in this environment, where we think the country seems to be on the precipice of maybe a recession, it's still good to have jobs, and the consumer is still able to produce and put bread on the table for the family. So that's why we're committed to those tabletop kitchen table issues that the Senator and I talk about all the time, to make sure that our people are protected. One of the Senator's priorities was getting a minimum wage passed. That was a priority.
Absolutely.
To increase minimum wage for 20 years. We got minimum wage increase, and the first thing during while inflation is going up and people are blaming Democrats for inflation, which is crazy, the Republicans introduced a bill in the House to repeal the increase of the minimum wage.
Exactly.
So we know that they don't mean what they say sometimes. And I just, it's really sad that in this time where people are having some insecurity about the future, that they would repeal minimum wage increases. And so thank God that it did pass in the House, but the brick wall in the Senate, picked it up, throw it in the trash, and bounced it out of here. So it was not effective. There were a number of bills like that where we had done some great work increasing minimum wage, protecting our workers. We're protecting our workers who work at the shipyard to make sure that they get wages and they can negotiate their wages, and make sure that we increase access to health care. And the Republicans wanted to they introduced bills to almost repeal all of it. And so we just have to be very cognizant of how important these elections are. Don't get caught up in the big picture. Don't get caught up in the little petty stuff, and stay focused on the big picture and the goals that we've been working on for generations. These are generational changes that we made, increasing minimum wage in the Commonwealth of Virginia. I seen Nadarius came on.
Yes, I seen Nadarius Clark has come on.
And I just want to piggyback on what Donna said about what we've done to try to bring jobs to not just to Hampton Roads, but to the Commonwealth. We had the solar wind bill, which is the bill that I carried. And we have gone to all kinds of presentations and talking about the effect that's going to have in Hampton Roads in particular. And also, just last week was Senator Warner, Congresswoman Elaine Laurier, Congressman Scott, myself, and there was one other person, Delegate Bloxham. spoke down at ports, talking about the results of the funding or the partnership between the federal government and state government to bring the infrastructure to the ports that's going to create billions of jobs, billions of dollars in revenue, and this untold number of jobs. And even the president of 1248, I guess it is, Mr. Tom Little, he was there. And everybody talked about what the advantages are going to be from having this partnership between the federal government and state government to make sure that our ports are strengthened, that we're going to widen our channels, and that Virginia is going to be like #1 port in the nation. All those things matter. And then in addition to that, we Don, I know you want to talk about the gun safety laws that we've tried to put forth, and instead of continuing to strengthen gun violence prevention laws, Republicans have spent this whole session attempting to pass dozens of bills aimed at rolling back the life-saving measures that Democrats passed in recent years. Don can speak to some of the bills that he introduced, but in particular, we introduced repealing the ban on from repealing the ban on guns in daycare to allowing guns on school property. And what the Republicans did, they demonstrated their commitment to pulling more guns on the streets. And thankfully, their efforts were met with that brick wall that we keep talking about, and we held a line on that. Nadarius is on now, so I'm sure he's going to want to have something to say because the time will go by very quickly, and then I'll jump back in again.
Yes, so welcome, Delegate Scott.
Delegate Clark.
Clark, welcome.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, and I don't know if you were used to sleeping in when you were at Virginia Union, but a little different now at the State House. So, but anyway,
yeah. Luckily, Virginia Union had 7 a.m. classes when I was there.
Oh, well, we'll talk about that later then.
Well, good morning. Yeah.
Just briefly, tell us how it was. You were a freshman this year. How was it for you? What was the experience briefly? What was the experience like going into the General Assembly? Coming from all the work you had done previously, working for other candidates and doing certain things. What was that like, for a young man like yourself going in there and having that experience?
Yes. Well, first, thank y'all for having me on the show. Thank you for the invite. But yes, this session has been amazing. We got my feet wet. Like you said, this is my first session. I'm a freshman in the House, but it's been amazing. It's been a blessing to be able to just be in this body and to be able to learn so much. We had a good amount of bills that we introduced this year, but just being in there to learn the protocols, to learn the processes, and to file these bills and to be a champion for a lot of these different issues that we put up a good fight for. It was an amazing experience. Definitely to have Don over there and to have Madam President Pro Tem in there. I have great leadership and great people I can lean on and depend on for advice as well. So it's been a great journey.
Yes, and before anybody else goes, I want to say the time is short, and I think our co-hosts have some questions. Leo and the Colonel might have some questions, so if we can give them an opportunity to throw them in there, I'm sure to be concerning some of the things that you all were previously talking about. So, Leah, if you have
my question primarily starts with the redistricting that took place. How is that going to impact upon each of you? I've been trying to see the lines. I understand that they show where the lines are going to be, like in the Richmond papers, but I have not seen anything locally to tell us what are the changes that are taking place with the redistricting.
Well, I guess I'll start with the 18th Senatorial District, since that's one where one of the major changes in the state was made. When I ran for the Senate in 1991, the district ran from Portsmouth to Halifax County and included 12 localities. Mm-hmm. And over time, the district was reduced down to 11 localities, which included Portsmouth, Chesapeake, Suffolk, Franklin, Southampton County, Isle of Wight County, Greenville County, Emporia, um, Sussex, Surrey, and of course I had Wakefield, Lawrenceville. I mean, it just was 12 localities all included in the 18th Senatorial District. And at one point, it even included Blackstone. And the district now, the way the lines have been drawn, for the first time, the 18th Senatorial District will be a district that's contiguous, but it only will include Portsmouth and Chesapeake. But in so doing, the district, the 5th Senatorial District, which is currently represented by Senator Spruill, was dismantled. The 18th Senatorial District is still intact. However, the 18th Senatorial District only has like 40% of the voters in that district are now from Portsmouth and 60% are from Chesapeake. Well, the difference is, since 1991, I have represented Portsmouth, but I've also represented a part of Chesapeake for the entire 30 years. So when people said, oh, but Chesapeake is 60% of the district, and I said, but I've always represented a part of Chesapeake. So not only am I well known over there, right now I have constituents who are in Chesapeake. So it's going to be quite a I want to say, I don't want to say contentious because I'm never going to run an ugly campaign, but it's going to be a spirited campaign. Let me say it that way, because now the way the special masters drew the district, it puts Senator Spruill and myself in the same seat. And I think there may be similar, well, I know there are situations like that all over the Commonwealth, because, for example, Tommy Norman and I were elected the same year, as was Janet Howell. I think we're the 3 members left who were elected in 1991. All of us are coupled with somebody else, except Janet Howell decided she's going to retire. Senator Norman hasn't decided yet because he is going to be in the district with Senator McDougal, Ryan McDougal, both whom are leaders in their caucuses. And so all across the state, we can't say that the district was drawn just to the disadvantage of Democrats, because if you're talking about getting, I'm going to use the right word here, but in the crosshairs, Democrats and Republicans alike are in the crosshairs in this new redistricting process, in that it coupled Republicans against Republicans and Democrats against Democrats. And then in some cases, Democrats and Republicans all in the same district. So it's quite a mess.
And the process that took place this time, Senator Lucas, there was a special committee assigned to draw the lines, was it not?
Yes, it was supposed to be a nonpartisan committee. And and I'll tell you what, it is the worst thing that could have happened. We thought that having a committee structured that way would dissolve us of some of these issues. But as it turned out, it still got thrown to the Supreme Court because the committee that was put together could not solve the problem. They could not compromise, or they chose not to. And so when it got thrown over to the Supreme Court, I said, to me, it seems like the special master just gave all of us the middle finger and just went with what they received. And it is an absolute abomination. Republicans and Democrats alike are saying the same thing. It is the worst mess we've had in any redistricting process.
So you're saying now that you're going to have 60% of Portsmouth, 40% of...
No, the opposite. Portsmouth is only going to be 40% of the district, and Chesapeake is going to be 60%.
And what 40% of Portsmouth is it?
It does not include all of Portsmouth. For example, the section out there where, let me see, the section over there where Judge Marsh and Delegate Scott lives. Delegate Scott is not in the 18th Senatorial District, neither is Judge Marshall or Cynthia Marshall, anybody over in that part of that community.
The Churchland area now.
The Churchland area.
Yep, Senate District 17 now.
Now, what about Western Branch?
17.
17.
Oh, wow.
So Nadarius, what area do you cover?
Yes, so with redistricting, my district has seen some dismantlement as well. The 79th district has been a little dismantled. Currently, it represents the Portsmouth, Norfolk, and Chesapeake as a part of each city. But with redistricting, the 79th has been completely dismantled, and me and Delegate Scott is actually run in the same district. but I will actually be going to the 84th district. I announced back in January that I'll be seeking re-election in the new 84th district, which is right, it's the borderlines of Suffolk, Franklin, and Isle of Wight.
Oh goodness.
Right. So
which means that Delegate Clark will no longer be our delegate in Portsmouth.
Correct.
Okay, so that means in Portsmouth, Don, we will have Don, and portions of Portsmouth will have you, Louise, but not all of you, and we get none of Nadarius.
Well, let me just say this: in this next election, you're either going to get me or Sproul.
Okay.
And then the other seat, and then the other senatorial district, 17, which has a piece of Portsmouth, because they split Portsmouth up, right?
Uh-huh.
So
That's correct.
Senate District 18 has one piece, Senate District 17 has another piece. The Senate District 17 piece goes towards Suffolk and that direction. So it's from Churchland out towards Suffolk, if that makes sense.
And who is the person who will be in the 17th?
So right now there is no senator who is the incumbent in Senate District 17. And there is a Republican member of the House of Delegates who has declared that she is running. Her name is Emily Brewer. She represents the district that Nadarius is currently going to run in. And we know that there's at least one announced candidate for the Senate District 17 and that's Delegate Clinton Jenkins, who represents part of Suffolk now. He has indicated his that he is intending to run in Senate District 17 as well. And I'm sure there may be others on both sides of the aisle that may decide to jump in. But yeah, redistricting was not what a lot of the proponents thought it would be, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, and we put two of our icons in the same district. Unfortunately, they put two of our icons, Senator Sproul and Senator Lucas, are two of the icons in Hampton Roads. They both have a long-serving histories on city councils. The senator, she went straight to the Senate. Senator Sproul went from the House to the Senate, and it's just
Senator Sproul went to the Senate in 2016.
Right, and so these folks, they unfortunately that's where we are, and hopefully, everything as we move forward, it'll work itself out. But it's unfortunate, and we just have to just keep our heads down and keep working. I know Senator Lucas is going to work hard, as she said, and continue to work hard. And she's on. Just remind folks that she's on some of the most powerful committees.
Exactly.
And in a great position to help Hampton Roads. So we just have to really be cognizant of that as we make these decisions moving forward. But that was a good question. As you can see, it did kind of rattle a whole lot of folks all over the Commonwealth.
I'm sure.
Excuse me. But
I know,
with this
I've been searching for the lines. I must not have gone to the right places so I could see who my representative. Oh, we got to go off just a minute. We got to go off the radio. Okay, just a minute.
I'm going to interrupt. I'm sorry, conversation, but we're leaving the radio station at this time at 7, but we're continuing on Facebook Live. We want to thank all the listeners on WGPL 1350 AM. And also, I'd like to give the Colonel a chance to get in here. He's in Hawaii, and we talked earlier. It's about 1 o'clock there. So hope he's still awake, but I want to give a Colonel a chance to get in there, at this time, Leah, if you don't mind. Not unless you can finish up your question, but
no, Colonel can go ahead and start.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll just follow up, because what we just discussed is that every vote counts, and what we are seeing here is a trickle down effect of inadequate leadership at the national level from the census that is really affecting the state of Virginia. In our legislative branch in the Senate is led by Senator Lucas, is our last line of defense against what I call the Confederates of the Republican Party. They want to roll back everything that is good for people in this state. They want to overturn voting rights. And what I would really want to say that every senator on the Democratic side and every representative on the Democratic side need to write these op-eds and to get out there and start beating the bushes to tell the people all the issues that these Confederates have tried to roll back, because the man on the street does not hear what we just talked about and what's the effect of on their daily lives. And it just burns me up when I hear you talk about everything that they're doing, and the man on the street is oblivious to what is happening at this time. And so we're at a precipice of what's going on, what our country is going to look like, what's our Commonwealth is going to look like. We have a Confederate governor that we know is a businessman that really is trying to look for higher office and really doesn't care, in my opinion, I'll put that out, about the Commonwealth, other than seizing more power and appeasing the right-wing faction of the Confederate Party there, of the Republican Party.
And Colonel, if you will follow my feed on Twitter, you will see I'm punching them back every single day.
I know you are. I know, but I'm talking about our other representatives also. I think it has to be a concerted, an effort of everybody that's going to be out there running. Because, we're almost in election season, and we'll see a lot of signs and everything on the side of the road. That's not going to get our people out, because we're going to have to get people out here that to vote. And not a sign on the side of the road is going to get them to go out. That's my opinion.
I think you're right. I think you're right, Colonel. And you said election season is about to begin. The Republicans have already started running.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
We need to understand that everything that they do, and the senators fighting them every day. And the election season. I want to make a caveat real quick. Western Branch is in Senate District 18. I was looking at the precincts now, so that's a Western Branch is in 18. But but Colonel, you're correct. Republicans are running now. We have to be engaging, and Senator Lucas is doing an excellent job of leading the way for us to follow on how you engage with these people and fight them. I mean, when you have a bully, you have to hit them back, and she hits back often. The people that are timid, they beat them up. The people like the senator who fight back, they don't mess with us. So I think, we just have to continue to, or they figure out a way to do it in a way that they not public, because they don't want to go. They don't want to see that smoke with Senator Lucas for most of the time. And, but one of the things, y'all, I wanted to circle back about Nadarius Clark, who's our freshman here. And he reminds me of myself when I first came in. He's very conscientious. He learns, he listens. He wants to do the work. He cares about the community. His dad is a Navy veteran. He understands veterans, and he understands Hampton Roads and the Commonwealth of Virginia as we move out that way. And Nadarius introduced a bill that had great bipartisan support, and it was a big bill. It was an important bill to reduce the time that people can collect medical debt.
Yes,
and that was a burden on families. And that bill had bipartisan support. And I just wanted Nadarius to say a word about that, because the governor vetoed it. And which was amazing, because it had, I don't know what the number was, Nadarius. You could probably say it might have been an 80-20 vote, or maybe even higher than that. What was that number, Nadarius? About
in the House, it was 87-9, and it passed the Senate unanimously.
And then the governor vetoed it.
Yes, he did.
These. Go ahead, Nadarius. You could talk about what
he vetoed it. Never reached out, and then when his explanation on why it was vetoed, he said it had unintended consequences, that it may put other depth in the scope of it, and that wasn't true. We worked with the Attorney General's office, we worked with the Senate side as well, and we made sure that the bill was bulletproof. And we never received any communications from the governor's office, in regards to the bill prior to the veto. And sadly, medical debt is a burden here in Virginia. 1 in 4 people that's homeless is because of medical debt. So this was a huge thing, because currently state-funded hospitals has no threshold for a statute of limitation.
That's right.
Yeah. So saying that, so when I, and I put myself in your shoes. So when I go out and give my press conference and I say, okay, if you are Mr. Smith and you got that unintended hospital debt that just came in your mailbox, thank your Republican or Confederate governor for vetoing the bill, because you would not have gotten it if he would not have if he'd have okayed the bill.
The tragedy there is the
yes.
overwhelming support that the bill got in the House, and
yes.
and unanimous support in the Senate.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And
yes.
then he vetoes that bill. I mean, that is unconscionable.
Yes, it's crazy. It's crazy.
And
so it's politics.
Does the governor not reach out to the sponsor of the bill to kind of give some explanation as to why?
Oh, absolutely not. Nope.
He doesn't care.
Not at all.
He doesn't care.
We kind of knew what his agenda was going to be before he even got in there. Like most of the Republicans nationally now, they tell us what they're going to do.
They do. They do.
And then it comes down to us being aware and listening and getting out there and voting, because they put it right in our face and tell us what we're going to do. And then we got representatives up there, and then it's up to us as the voting public to respond as well. So we have to take some of that responsibility. And I want to say this about my Panther brother there, even though he will be going to another district. But just like the other representatives, what they do really helps all of us in the state, and it'll trickle down to people in the city of Portsmouth, some of the things he'll be doing in another district. So keep that in mind for our fellow Portsmouth native there.
James, if you don't mind, I'd like to just explain to the Colonel that, or in I guess you got the listening audience now by Facebook.
Yes.
Is that I haven't just been hitting back at the governor on a daily basis, but in addition to being President Pro Tem of the Senate, where I preside, and being ranking member on every committee that I serve on, I am also the first vice chair for outreach for the Virginia Democratic Party. In that position, I'm responsible for every caucus in the Democratic Party. And last night in particular, I spoke to the Asian American Pacific Islanders at their Heritage Month celebration. Some people don't know it, but we have celebrations like we have Black History Month, we have Asian American Pacific Month, we have Women's History Month. And so for each of these celebrations, I'm tasked with the responsibility to go out and speak to those groups and try to get them fired up. I can tell you, when I got there, I was even surprised myself with how many people actually know who were in that celebration that I just drove back from last night. But just since April the 9th, I've gone to Fairfax County Democratic Committee, the Virginia Young Democrats. I spoke to the Portsmouth and Chesapeake Democratic Committee. I went to the Hanover Democratic Committee just last week. Then I spoke to the Delegate King's kickoff for her for her campaign, and of course, Delegate Don Scott was there as well. I spoke to the Prince William Democratic Committee. Went to the situation with Congressman Elaine Laurier, with the Senator, with Delegate Cliff Hayes, and then went to the Albemarle Democratic Committee. And just like I said, and then last night I was with the Asian American Pacific Islanders for their celebration. So I'm going to every city in the Commonwealth, every city, county, and town in the Commonwealth, getting these people energized. And when I leave them with a task to do voter registration, to do voter education, to get their committees riled up, to get them fired up, and get them turning out. And almost to the committee that I've spoken to so far, they admit that they could have done more to turn out the vote in this last election. And so that's the kind of I think that's the kind of activity that needs to continue, but not just with me, Louise Lucas, because I'm chair of outreach and because I'm the President Pro Tem. I have encouraged other Democrats to go with me to some of these committees. I'm going to be going to Charlottesville. I'll be speaking at the Pro-Choice Virginia 20th anniversary celebration. I'll be speaking at the Treasurers Association. I'm going to Harrisonburg, Amherst, Acclimate, Lexington, Rockingham, North Chesterfield. I've got 40 speaking engagements on my calendar where I'm going out firing up Democrats in every committee all across this state. And when I leave there, I know that it has made a difference. People are saying they're remorseful. They wish they had done more to try to turn out voters in the last election. They're going to do better in the next election. And I just want to wait and see if it really makes a difference. But that's what I'm doing. So I'm punching back at the governor on my Twitter feed every day. And I am in one committee somewhere in this state every week.
Well, you know, Senator Lucas, I'm sorry if you got it. I think you're doing a wonderful job. And you just said it. The others that just told you that they failed in getting our people out to vote. That's what I mean. Because you're spearheading, you're at the tip of the spear, and you're doing what you're supposed to do. But it needs to be a collective effort for those that are in the Democratic Party to get our people out to vote. Because now we're suffering from staying home last time.
Yep.
And
yeah, you make a good point. I mean, the race, the House of Delegates flipped. We're at a 52-48. We lost 2 seats by less than about 220 votes.
Yes.
We lost 5 seats. If you total them all up, maybe about a total of 2,100 votes, which is a field margin. And so you think about, we lost 1 seat over in the Peninsula side by 64 votes. We lost another one in Virginia Beach by about 220 votes. We lost another one up in Northern Virginia by about 500. We lost one in Petersburg by about 300. Since the election, I've been appointed as the chair of the campaign committee for the House of Delegates. So my primary focus and job is to help Senator Lucas get back the majority, help them keep the majority, help the House get the majority, so that we can then protect the folks, the Commonwealth, from some of the things that the governor's doing. I mean, there's so much hypocrisy that's going on. He talks about education. He talks about historic pay raises, but the Senate budget, which is a budget that we agree with, which is the Democratic majority budget, they have a higher pay increase for teachers. The House budget lowers, that's still a pay increase, but it's a lower pay increase for teachers. He talks about law enforcement. The budget that we have for the Senate put in gives a higher pay increase to localities for law enforcement. The budget that the House Republicans put in is a lower pay increase for law enforcement. So, but they get away with making these claims that are false because people don't know. They'll say historic investments, but they are, because we're in a good place, but we could do more to build up these institutions and this infrastructure. And so when they talk about some of this crazy stuff, they're the ones defunding education, public education. They're the ones defunding law enforcement, because we're trying to put more money in there. We put a larger raise in for the Capitol Police. We put a larger pay raise in for state employees. We put a larger one in for our legal system employees, the clerks and things that work in the court system, and the House Republicans lowered it all. I mean, you can go and Google this stuff. Because I mean, I know there's no people just need to see it, that there are some things that they do not do. We put in the Senate put in a larger increase for Medicaid reimbursement for dental care, because we know a lot of dental care is related to health, a big part of health care. And they put in a large increase for people who may not have as much money as some others that have Medicaid that can get dental care. And the Senate put in an increase so more dentists will take that insurance. And the House Republicans are slashing that. So we just need to understand across every spectrum, from education to healthcare to public safety, Democrats are better on these issues. We believe we're investing more in the infrastructure, and Republicans are cutting that thing because they want to take the money and give it back to their benefactors, or they want to invest it in private education and take that money away from public schools. And we hope that the senator and others in the Senate will continue to hold the line while we get the majority back.
And Delegate Scott, I'm glad you said that, because, I hate to sound like I'm trying to take credit for everything, but I am the chair of public safety, which is this committee under the Senate Finance Committee, and of course, a conferee for that part as well. Public safety is where all of the recommendations for increases to state police, the sheriffs, any correctional facility in the state.
Department of Corrections employees.
And I chair that committee. I chair that committee. But let me tell you another thing that happened under that committee. This year, I was able to get 9 people, only 2 of whom were not African American, compensated for being wrongfully incarcerated. And each one of them were compensated in excess of $1 million for being wrongfully incarcerated. That came through my committee. And when I stood on the floor to announce how much each one of these people were going to receive for being wrongfully incarcerated, you could hear a pin drop.
Now, now my thing is how, and Patsy Hines is asking this as well. It came to my mind as well. We need to find a way to get that information to the everyday citizen, because they're not getting
exactly correct, because
they're not getting it. You know,
when we get to this next election, people are not going to understand that I've been in the Senate for 30 years. But Sproul is an icon. I just regret that we're both in the same district. But as president pro tem, vice chair for the party, ranking member on all these committees, it matters.
So we really need to start now getting the information out to everyday citizen. We also need to get the information out to everyday citizen that every vote counts. I told a young lady yesterday a couple of days ago, was telling me about why do we need to vote? It's not important. You know, it's not going to make a difference anyway. And I shared with her the incident. I can't remember which county it was in, where the two individuals were tied and they had to flip a coin.
That was in the peninsula. That was Shelley Simons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know, and they had to just toss a coin to determine who was going to get the seat. So every vote is crucial.
And the Republicans kept the House majority by one vote because of
that coin toss. So it's imperative that we start now working on voter education and voter registration, getting these rights restored so that these individuals can vote. It needs to start now. We can't wait until the election season starts. It needs to take place now on a day-to-day basis.
Well, what people really need to understand is who is getting the work done. Who is actually doing the job. I tell you what, I will place what I've done in the General Assembly, and especially as it has to do with education and health and that budget, I will stack that up against any member of the legislature, all 140.
I believe you there. Yes. And it is true. And you know, that long litany of things that Don was just talking about, that'd be a great commercial. I'd like to see that on the TV stations across the station. And all of our representatives and senators that are running or Democrats that are running, every time they're asked to run down what Democrats stand for, is to run down that litany. It should be on their note cards, because we know that the Confederates are going to be running, and I use the word Confederates in relations to Republicans. They're going to distract. They're going to say, we're running on, say, CRT or replacement theory or something like that.
And all of those are completely false narratives.
Yes.
They're completely false narratives. But instead of saying completely false narratives, I'm saying to me, when I walk out and I see Joe Henry and they say this CRT, what is this CRT? I call them a racist right then. And I go straight for the jugular and then explain to them what they're meaning. You know, it's a graduate law school theory. Has nothing to do with what these Confederates are trying to do at our local school boards and things like that.
Well, I was going to add, Colonel, I was going to add, you know, you keep saying Confederates. I mean, as recent as last session, one of the members on the House side introduced a bill to allow people to put the Confederate memorials back up, the ones that were taken down. Recently in Shenandoah Valley, in that area up there, they had renamed a high school from Stonewall Jackson back to, you know, I think it was, Memorial Valley or something like that. And the school board there just voted to change the name back to some names up to Stonewall Jackson, to, you know, those Confederate leaders. I think a couple of those schools that they wanted to rename to Confederate leaders. So I just think the fight that we're in is a continuous fight. It never stops. When you think you have a victory, you don't. If last session didn't teach us anything, all the stuff that we did when we had the majority, every single thing that we passed, from criminal justice reform to healthcare to minimum wage to Senator Lucas's 1 gun a month limitation for people to buy 1 gun a month bill, from red flag laws to protect people who say they have a mental health issue to be able to have their guns taken civilly and then go to a circuit court all of those, every single one of those bills, the Republicans tried to repeal. They introduced bills to repeal every single one of those. So we need to understand how close we are to the precipice of going back to
That's right.
where we are. And I just think folks don't get it sometimes, or they think it's okay, or they think these people are not serious and they're just espousing views that are extreme, but they don't really think it could happen. Oh, it can happen. If January 6th didn't teach you anything, hopefully you learned that it can happen, and it wouldn't take a whole lot to make it happen.
Exactly.
So,
let me jump in with this one. We went, I mean, it took us a decade to try to get marijuana legalized in Virginia. And then on July 1st last year, the possession of 1 ounce of marijuana became legal. Now, the governor tried to recriminalize possession of marijuana. I had a bill, and had it not been for the efforts of Delegate Scott and Delegate Clark and Democrats on the other side, on the House side, they would have repealed that bill that I introduced that would prevent a police officer from using the smell of marijuana as a pretext to stopping people. So they even tried to repeal that law. And so for young people, if for no other reason, just think about the fact that you would be recriminalized for having 1 ounce of marijuana on you, or if a police officer smelled marijuana if he approached your car. Under my bill, if a police officer approached your car, he could not use the smell of marijuana as a pretext to stop you.
You are so correct. Slim, before you go there,
let me chime in there for a minute. I just like to say that, going back to Portsmouth, I just want people to be aware, and Delegate Scott mentioned about Googling, these bills, the House bills and the Senate bills. And we do that here at Coffee Talk. But a lot of people are more interested in Googling to see what Oprah is doing rather than to see this.
Party B.
Right. That's why we try to do here on Portsmouth Coffee Talk. And I'm asking you now, let's continue this. Let's do part 2, part 3, or whatever, or this be a regular visit from you all so we can get it out to the people that watch us. I just wanted to mention this so people in Portsmouth will know the HB 567, the Total Relief Program that you introduced, Delegate Scott. They killed that, and the Portsmouth City amending charter for recall election, and that was very important.
Oh, that was the bill that I carried that bill in the and you know who was responsible for defeating that bill? The person who has been my nemesis for the last 2 years, ever since we brought down the Confederate money in Portsmouth, Tim Anderson.
Yes, Tim Anderson. And the reason that was so important here in Portsmouth, because the only people who have been recalled have been African Americans.
That's right.
And you can just bring up any reason because he has a missing tooth or whatever. That's why we want to recall him. So, this bill would have been important as far as giving some people a solid reason for recalling, our officials. And hopefully it'll come back up next year, and we'll have some help in the House and the Senate to get that. But, you got that guy with that veto pen that can do some damage. We have to look at that in the future. But I just wanted to bring that up for the Portsmouth citizens. While everybody wants to talk about the casino, which is almost here, all these other things are happening around us, and we have to be aware what's going on in other areas of our city and the state. So we won't sit back and say, "Wow, how did that happen?"
Well, Jim, in defense of the casino, let me just say this. Of course, it had been my bill for over 20 years, but the majority of people in Portsmouth, over 70% of the people in Portsmouth, voted through referendum to have the casino. So they can't say, people who don't like casinos can still say that, but the majority is how we govern in this nation.
That's right.
By the majority vote. And
unless you ask somebody from the MAGA team.
Thank you. Right. I was about to say that, Don.
That's exactly right.
Things as they deem necessary.
But we got to the point of having a casino after me putting that bill in for over 20 years, because it was cast to the voters and not just 2 or 3 people in a room. And overwhelmingly, Portsmouth voted for the casino to be constructed here. Now, if people had turned out, if people had voted in Portsmouth in this last election, like they voted for some other things, we would have won the last election, because as sad as it is, Portsmouth voters turned out fewer people than any city, county, or town in Virginia last year. And that was also painful for me. When we went back to the legislature, and Don, you and Nadarius, I know you felt the same thing. To say that Portsmouth ranked dead last in terms of voter turnout, that was an embarrassment to me.
Yeah.
Nadarius, have you anything for us? Are you with us? Okay.
Yeah, I'm still here taking it all in. But
yeah, I know. And that's what you do as a freshman. You take it in so that you can learn and so that you can proceed on in the way of those who went before you. So did you have anything you want to share at this time?
Yes, just a few bills briefly. We did have a prenatal care bill for implicit bias. We know in Virginia, Black and brown mothers still die at a higher rate when given childbirth, and Black and brown children still die at a higher rate when childbirth happens. We saw that it was feasible for the state. So it wouldn't have to be a budget amendment or nothing will be included, that the hospitals will be able to cover these trainings for implicit bias. Sadly, it was still killed in subcommittee. It was laid gently on the table, as they would like to say, even though we see that the data proves that Black and brown mothers and children will still die, definitely as we're coming in, we're still in a pandemic. So, these are just some of the things that we're going up against. I put in another bill for teacher pay to make sure that we did bring up teacher pay to the national average or above. Sadly, again, that was killed. So like Don and Madam President was saying, they campaign on one thing, and then when it's time to put in the work, they do another. Right. So like we said, elections have consequences. We have to make sure that we take nothing for granted. We get out there now. We start knocking on these doors. We get voter registration done. We cannot go back. And we know that if we stand by idly, we're just allowing them to do what they want to do. And we have to make sure that we can continue to have that brick wall in the Senate, but we can also bring back, that the majority in the House.
Exactly.
Yeah, y'all, I apologize. I think I let the host know I had a hard stop at 7:30 this morning. It's one of those mornings that I got daddy duty because my wife had something going on. So I let you know ahead of time that's why I was here as early as I could possibly be. And I really appreciate y'all having me on today. And I hope that y'all continue to have this conversation and dialogue. And we can do it again soon, because there is a lot, and there's a lot of things that folks don't know, especially when it comes to the money. You can listen to what to their lips, but the budget is where your priorities are.
Absolutely.
And you look at that budget, you can see that we have a set of priorities that they do not share around who gets help. You put your money where your mouth is, and so they got all mouth, but they're not putting no money. In Texas, we call it all hat, no cattle. So at the end of the day, though, but I thank y'all for having me. God bless everybody. I hope y'all will continue to do what you're doing, and I look forward to continuing the conversation. Thank y'all.
God bless. Thank you, Don.
Thank you, Don.
Yes,
and
thank you.
We are winding
as we about to depart, I'd also like to say that my next stop is going to be at CHKD over at the hospital, because I put in a budget amendment for the Children's Hospital, the King's Daughters, and so they want to show me a tour of what they've done so far and where we're going to be going from here.
And before you leave, Senator Lucas, what has it been like working with Winston Sears?
We don't have much conversation, so I think that's probably the reason why we've done well. Because when she's away, I'm stepping to the well. We've not had very many conversations at all. And as a matter of fact, she doesn't have conversation with a lot of people, period. She's just kind of like to herself mostly.
That's what I was hearing. And that's why I was wondering, what was it like? Because I'm not hearing very much,
Yeah, but she's not doing a whole lot of mingling with a whole lot of people. Let me just say that. But she holds the line very strongly for the Republicans when it's time for her to go speak at public places. But in terms of mingling with members of the body, she'll speak and have a little small talk. But other than that, there's no in-depth conversations going on, at least not with me. But so far it's been cordial. We've not had any reason to knock heads so far. So
no, you'll keep us straight, that's for sure.
Well, I'll give you a summary of that.
Darius, if Delegate Scott is still there.
Delegate
not Scott, but Delegate Clark. I'm sorry.
Oh, yes. I just wanted to end by saying thank you again for having me. I would love to continue this conversation. It's so much, legislation and things. We could be here until tomorrow. But I would love to, just keep this going on. Today's actually my birthday. I'm down here in South Carolina.
Well, happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Where in South Carolina are you, Nadarius?
I'm in Myrtle Beach today.
Okay, enjoy your birthday.
Will do.
Okay. But quickly, before you go, a bit of good news with all the critical race theory talk. One of the bills that I don't know if you sponsored or co-sponsored to continue the Commission on Discrimination Against African American, the study of that commission that's studying that, that was passed. Am I right? Am I correct to continue that study and that information?
Well, that they feel safe to go on and continue studies because it's not doing anything but people getting in a room talking. It's just when you get ready to introduce legislation that's going to impact what you've already studied, that makes a difference, because a lot of the studies that we're done still sitting on shelves collecting dust.
Amen. I know. Yes, you said a mouthful there. But you know what, Senator Lucas, what you talked about your relationship with the lieutenant governor. A lot of times, my experience is if you don't have the depth of breadth and knowledge of what you're doing, you're quiet.
Yes.
And the lieutenant governor is displaying that every day.
Well, I'll tell you what, I served in that as a presiding over the Senate a lot when Justin Fairfax was the lieutenant governor, because he was often out on some very important invitations that he had received to speak to major African-American communities and groups. And so I presided each time he was out. And so each time that Lieutenant Governor Sears has been out, I've done the same. And of course, one of those times he was out quarantining from COVID. And I don't know whether the second time was because she actually had COVID or what the reason for her being out. But I've even had to step in and preside for her on her birthday. On her birthday, she was there, but she was people were calling her out, and she was having conversations with people on her birthday. And so I had to preside like several times that day. But anytime either one of them, anytime the lieutenant governor is out, then I just stop what I'm doing as a senator and go up and take the chair as a lieutenant governor.
Well, you know what? And it's a good thing that when she's not there, bottom line.
I enjoy being serving as the president pro tem, because it gives me an opportunity to do two things. And so when people ask me, well, why don't you run for lieutenant governor? I say, well, why would I want to do that when I get to serve anyway?
Yeah. But you know what? You mentioned Justin. Is Justin going to do? What is Justin's future?
Well, right now, I think he's working at the law firm. Well, I'm not sure exactly what his political plans are, but and I think as far as his legal career is concerned, I think I'm very hopeful that he can land a job anywhere he chooses to, within the law firm he chooses, because he is a very talented attorney. But personally, I've not had any conversation with him other than just through a text message. So how are you doing? Something like that. But I think he's going to land on his feet because he's a smart man.
Yes. I think so too.
I just wanted to say, I was looking for the response from Delegate Clark on that question about the commission. And I understand that studies end up sitting on the shelf, but I also believe personally that studies are needed. I mean, some of those that sit on the shelf don't sit on there forever. Some of them come down. So I believe that they're important. But I was looking for Delegate Clark's response to that.
Yes, that study, I believe it did pass again. We still have a few bills in conference, but I think that one was one that passed. Now we haven't met, or the study commission hasn't been formed yet, but it has passed through both houses.
Okay,
thanks. Okay, I think we're winding down now. We won't hold you all any long. We know you all have busy schedules, and we really appreciate you taking the time and coming on and sharing this important information to our audience. And hopefully more people will see it once we download it to our YouTube channel. And as we talked earlier, we're going to continue this, and maybe this will be an ongoing thing every so often that we bring you back and talk about what's going on. And hopefully more people will be aware of all those other bills, or all the bills that are come, especially that affect the city of Portsmouth, but also statewide, because that's important, especially with the administration we have in there now, what they're trying to do, some things. They undid a lot of things that you all worked hard for. And I don't know if people know that. And hopefully that would encourage a lot of people to get out there and vote next time, and don't embarrass us as the lowest voting percentage city in the state of Virginia. I mean, that's just horrible. We historically have been up there. We've been the place where politicians want to come because we vote so well, especially Democratic. And, you know, that's going to make people sort of fly right over us, go to Virginia Beach, go to Hampton, and spread their message. So,
well, I'll tell you what, I'm sure hoping that that's not the case when we have our election next year, because if it does, I think you all can pretty much estimate what the outcome is going to be.
Oh, yes.
Indeed, so. Indeed.
Definitely so.
Yes, we're going to
you can predict that outcome right now.
Yes.
Oh, and Senator, before we go, just want to get your take on, like, the national. You hear a lot of people talking about nationally, the Democrats are not getting out the message like the Republicans are. I mean, Republicans are beating their followers in the head with things that lies and things that, and some of them don't make sense, but they're doing it and people are believing it, and we're not coming back.
That's right. We're allowing them to control the narrative instead of beating back, because I mean, just like I said, here in the Commonwealth, every time the governor raises his head with something that's not true, I take a swipe at it.
Yeah, I see you on Twitter, you know, and you have to use these social media outlets to get your message out, because that's where the people are, really.
That's correct. Yes. Well, I thank you for this time this morning, and hopefully after we have gone to make some decisions on the budget, we'll be able to come back with you with a message for the outcome.
Right.
Well, thank you very much. Let us know about, we'll be watching that budget process, and that's going to be very important for our listeners and watchers to be aware of as well as we go into the election season, because especially here locally, and all of us know how important it is locally to have people that state representatives can work with. And so that's going to be important what we do here locally on the election front as well. So
exactly.
Yes.
Last comments from the host?
No, yes. All elections matter. You know, it's important that we get out, that we understand what the issues are, and most of all, that we vote. It should be a shame to let anyone in your household not vote. So make sure you get out there, and if there are questions that you have that you would like for us to ask of the delegation in Richmond, please let us know, and we would definitely have them back on so that we can share more information as to what's taking place in the state of Virginia as well as in the city of Portsmouth. I'd like to thank Louise Lucas, Senator Pro Tem, and Nadarius Clark, Delegate Nadarius Clark, for coming on, as well as Delegate Don Scott. Thank you all for sharing your time with us this morning.
My pleasure.
Thanks for having us.
And I'd like to thank our guest this morning, and especially Louise. And I'll call you Louise because
please do.
Yes, because one, I feel like you're part of my family, you know, and as I told you before, you know, my dad used to work with you when you were in the shipyard.
Yes.
Decades ago.
Yes.
And we need you to stay at the tip of the spear and to continue this fight and keep doing what you're doing, because it is also important for our futures.
Well, it's important to me, and I enjoy what I do. There's nothing I like doing more than fighting for the people who sent me there in the first place. I have never forgotten how I got there.
Yes.
Okay, we want
And
to thank
again,
everybody.
happy birthday, Nadarius.
Happy birthday, Nadarius. Enjoy
Happy
your
birthday,
day.
Nadarius. Enjoy some for me.
Yes.
I will.
I never get to celebrate my birthday because it's always in January while we're in General Assembly.
And Nadarius, you know what we say, so hard to be a Panther, but it makes life easier later on.
Yes, it does.
All right. Okay, thanks everybody. And
Thank you.
Have a good day, everybody.
Everybody have a great day.
Thank you.
Our
Bye-bye.
Awesome
community,
Talk is here for our voice.
our community,
In our future.
and our future. Holding yours up for you, Thomas.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, everyone, have a great day.
Have a great day. Until next time, God bless you.
God
Thank
bless.
you. Bye-bye.